This week we're going to highlight some balance sheet scenarios for soybeans as well as price trends. We're going to turn our attention to harvest progress and weather trends here in the U.S. We're going to wrap things up with a review of planting progress and weather trends in Brazil. Hi, this is Brian Bastine with Advanced Trading. Let's talk about the soybean market. We moved in the month of November now, and soybean harvest is wrapping up here in the U.S. Before we get into that, however, I'd like to remind you that the USDA has announced that they will release a supply-demand report on Friday, November 14th, despite the government shutdown. Again, the USDA will release a supply-demand report on Friday, November 14th. What we're going to do briefly this week is look at balance sheet scenarios for soybeans. There's a lot of numbers on this table here. We focused in on that ending stocks and stocks to use ratio at the bottom there. What we did was alter the export forecast depending on when China takes their pledged export bushels from the U.S. One scenario, scenario A, the carryout is 319 million bushels. That's actually fractionally higher than it was a year ago. The other scenario reflects a more aggressive position in terms of shipments to China. That takes the carryout down to 179 million bushels. Here's the key message as we highlight here. Rather than get caught up in all the numbers, it's critical that after all the gloom and doom of lower prices this summer, remember now that nearby futures are at a 15-month high. Your time is best spent managing the price rally and avoiding price prediction. And you can do that by working closely with your trusted risk management advisor moving forward. Let's take a look at November soybean futures now. The history of November beans here, we can see that red line. We're looking at the highest prices we've seen for November 2025 soybean futures since July 8th of 2024. Now here's the key message. The crop insurance period base price was $10.54 back in February. The October price was $10.35. Remember now that crop insurance protection, you either will get an indemnity or you will not get an indemnity from your 2025 crop. That's why it's critical that you work closely with your trusted risk management advisor to get control of your 2025 bean bushels. Let's shift gears now and focus on harvest progress here in the U.S. Again, USDA is shut down, but we have estimated bean harvest progress at about 85% here as of early November. On average, U.S. soybeans harvested increased approximately 8% between November 2nd and the 16th. So by mid-month, weather permitting, we should be in that low to mid 90% progress with basically only the double crop beans remaining to be harvested. Of course, that fate of that remaining bean harvest will be directly tied to the weather. Let's take a look at the short-term forecast. Our slides this week, as usual, are courtesy of T-Storm weather. Starting out here looking at a very dry pattern over the next 7 days across the west and most of the central Midwest. There's some rain in the eastern Midwest, but not extremely heavy. Look at the next 2 weeks. A lot of the Midwest, the northern plains, eastern Corn Belt, normal to below normal precip. What about temperatures? Very warm across the west into the heart of the Corn Belt. That's through Friday, Saturday. There are some cold temperatures being forecast for about Sunday, moving into early next week. Let's wrap things up this week looking at trends in soybean production in Brazil. Now, Brazil is planting beans, of course, as we harvest beans here in the U.S. This is a map showing state by state percentage of total bean production nationwide. Planting progress here as we speak is about 47%. Notice that again, CONAB, equivalent of USDA in Brazil, is forecasting a record bean crop of 177.6 million tons for this crop that's being planted. What about the weather in Brazil? Looking at that northern area in particular, which is really wrapping up planting Mato Grosso, for example. Looking at very decent conditions, a little bit dry in the north, but plenty of moisture as we move further south throughout the country. Now, if you'd like more information, please feel free to contact us at 309-664-2300. We'll put you in contact with our risk management consultants who'll be happy to visit with you at your convenience. And remember, we upload every Wednesday. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Thanks a lot. Have a good week.